This is a report that has now been released by Mzalendo Trust on the Parliamentary Scorecard, and I'm actually privileged to have this quite early. It was released yesterday by Mzalendo Trust, and we have the Executive Director here with us. And just to go to some of the scorings here, and it's on the National Assembly, all right? We have the most active members in the National Assembly. Honorable Makali Mulu, Kitui Central, Beatrice Elachi, Dagoretti North, James Nyikal, Seme MP, Ken Chonga, Kilifi South, and Geoffrey Ruku, Mbeere North Member of Parliament. Those are the most active members of Parliament so far. They spoke about a number of issues, the issue of public investment initiatives, there's the issue of the vetting of cabinet secretaries, housing in Kibra, NHIF issues, school feeding programs in Asal counties. Most active women members of Parliament, of course, Beatrice Elachi featuring at the very top there, Sarah Korere, Beatrice Kemei, Lilian Gogo, Phyllis Barto as well. And the least active women members of Parliament, Teresia Wanjiru Mwangi, she's a nominated member of Parliament, Elizabeth Kailemia, Meru MP, Mudhoni Marubu Lamu, who is also an independent, who came in through an independent ticket. But having a look at the general least active members of Parliament, you have George Aladwa, who is a Makadara MP, Samuel Arama, Nakuru Town West MP, Oscar Sudi, Kapseret Constituency, Ernest Ogesi, Fred Kapondi, Charles Gimose, Faisal Bader, Innocent Momanyi, Ronald Karauri, and those are the most least active members of Parliament. We'll be getting to understand how, the criteria that Mzalendo Trust is using to really rank these members of Parliament on that. But also the most active youth members of Parliament. Gitonga Mukunji, who's a Manyata MP, Irene Mayaka, who's a nominated member of Parliament, Joseph Lemengit, that's the Mngwen member of Parliament, Robert Tungui, Joseph Kimilu, and Amos Mwago. However, the most least active youth members of Parliament, Jafet Nyakundi, Zahir Janda, and Teresia Wanjiru Mwangi, was a nominated member of Parliament under the UDA ticket. Those are the least, active members of Parliament. On average, a member of the National Assembly spoke 10 times. 187 members of the National Assembly spoke less than 8 times, this representing about 68%. All right, so there you have it. That just gives you a general outlook of really how the members of Parliament are performing in the National Assembly. In the Senate, you have the most active senators: Samson Cherargei, Eddie Koech of Migori, John Kinyua, Mohamed Faki, and Tabitha Mutinda, who's a nominated senator, had the most, to talk about. And I mean the most active senators within the Senate. What did they talk about? There's the issue of land historical injustices, promotion of mental health, issues to do with power outages, civic education, and good governance. Let's look at the general list active senators. Mira Abdullahi, who's a nominated senator, Joyce Korir, nominated senator, Shakila Abdallah, nominated senator, George Mbugua, nominated senator, Issa Boy Juma, who's a Kwale senator. All right. Most active women senators: Tabitha Mutinda, nominated senator, Gloria Uroba, nominated, Esther Okenyuri, nominated, Fatuma Dulo Isiolo, senator, and Crystal Asige, who's also a nominated senator. All right, just also very quickly, least active women senators, I think I've mentioned that. Mira Abdullahi, Joyce Korir, and Shakila Abdallah, all right? And least active youth senators: Chimera Mwinzago, Hezena Lemaletian, and Karen Nyamo, who are all nominated senators, are the least active youth senators there. And let's see, do we have the most active youth senators? Yes. So most active youth senators: Samson Cherargei, Eddie Koech, Tabitha, Gloria, and Esther Okenyuri. All right, that is a 2023 Parliamentary Scorecard, and it continues to give you a wider range of exactly what they were speaking about. On average, members of the Senate spoke 41 times. Only one senator spoke less than 10 times, with a majority making a contribution in plenary 50 times. or more. Look, we'll be breaking down this report for you. It's from Zalendo Trust, just taking a look at how members of parliament has scored. 11 months in office. They're sworn on this particular day. That's actually yesterday, 11 months ago. And they'll be having, I guess, another report 1 year, 1 month after this. That's just marking 1 year in office. But Caroline, so this particular report, give us your assessment, especially when it comes to, I think the first report you did was in 2014. So this would mark around, this is perhaps the ninth report. How are the trends? And really, I think the most basic question I want to understand is, how are you ranking these members of parliament in terms of their performance? Is it just about speaking in parliament?
Okay, thank you. Let me first start by saying why we do the scorecard, because that's always the starting point. So you look at the Constitution, Article 1 of the Constitution, sovereign power belongs to the people, can be exercised directly or through elected. So we've delegated our representation to the people, to the parliamentarians. And so our doing the scorecard is, one, trying to enhance responsive political actors, ensuring there's transparency and accountability, and also just making sure that the parliament is really responsive to citizen needs.
Right.
And so we do the scorecard. If you look at this year's scorecard, it's a little bit different from what incrementally we've made changes to the scorecard, because initially we started by just saying this and the number of times people have spoken, and people came back to us and asked us, so what have they spoken about? Is it just saying anything and everything in plenary and capturing that? And so beyond telling you how many times the members are speaking, we're also telling you what they're speaking about.
Right.
But to say that the focus of the scorecard is really on plenary contributions. And just looking at the plenary contributions, you will then see there's quite a big distinction between the Senate and the National Assembly, brought about by the size of the National Assembly. So we recognize that, National Assembly is quite big.
Right.
And therefore, the number of times members of parliament may be able to speak on the number of issues they may need to speak to is very limited, And so we take that into consideration. The Senate, on the other hand, you see it's a smaller number, and so you see the number of times the senators have contributed, again, is higher because they have opportunities for repeat contributions. What are we seeing with this year's scorecard? I think basically I would say that in terms of need to be seen to be responding is pretty high, and we get this not just from what we are doing with the scorecard, but also from, conversations, people wanting to know, is my new MP or is my continuing MP making contributions in parliament? This parliament also, has a higher number of what we normally call the special interest groups, the women, the youth. And so you also see in the scorecard that there's a higher number of youth, on youth, young, and especially the young women on performing pretty well, especially in the Senate. There's that thing that you see from the scorecard, because if you take a deep dive on the scorecard, we'll see that you've also done some sort of an analysis on the legislative agenda of the House itself, how many bills, how many motions, how many petitions. And what you will also see from a review of the first 11 months of the 11th Parliament is a higher interest from the public, in terms of public participation. It goes two ways. You've seen increased, yes, in the usual calls for public participation from Parliament, but an increasing number of citizens wanting to engage, with the legislative process. And I think the highest of this was, of course, within the finance bill, but it's not just the finance bill. Parliament itself has consistently put out public participations and received memoranda. And so the question we are asking is the responsiveness of this, or not the practicality, but the responsiveness or impact of this public participation on the business of the House. So is the views that are being heard from citizens, whether it's through memoranda, whether it's through the public hearings, are they being affected in the bills that are eventually passed from the House? And part of that we have seen. The other thing we are seeing with the scorecard is, of course, and this has been a concern from across the people, is the blurry lines between the executive and the legislature. I think one of the issues of and tenets of democracy is the separation of powers.
Right.
And so the question we have been asking ourselves is whose agenda is Parliament serving? Is it Wanjiko's agenda or is it the executive's agenda? And you can see this, you know, in terms of the voting patterns. And then lastly, let me also then speak, the other issue is around the oversight role of Parliament. So in terms of the vetting, the caliber of people that we are getting into office, and whether the laws, the oversight, the representation is for good of country. Yes.
And we're going to get into the tidbits of those particular issues. But Suleiman, just generally, when you look at our members of parliament, 11 months in office, we've seen the, you know, high-octane debates, especially on the Finance Act. There's also the issue of the two-thirds agenda principle as well, where a lot of people are really looking at the parliament right now. But there's also, I remember on Monday, there was the issue of laxity and absenteeism in some of, you know, members of parliament within certain committees. So just generally, when you look at members of parliament, how do you think they've performed, even when where you come from?
I think I'll start by saying that, firstly, Caro and her team at Mzalendo have done a good job. When they give us such a report, it will give us an opportunity to assess the performance of our respective members. I'm a bit, I don't know, I'm really disappointed because I've not seen my county woman rep, I've not seen my senator, I've not seen my MP in any of the list of some of the active members. Maybe I should be able
to look at that for you. I don't know which county you come from, by the way, Suleiman.
I come from Wajir South.
Okay.
Yes, unfortunately.
So, Wajir, we'll have a look at that.
So I will have a side discussion with Caro on the same, but it's a good thing. What she has done for us and her team is really important to us. And again, they have even gone further and even given us the kind of specific issues that these particular members were talking about largely. When I say issues to do with mental health, land, governance issues, these are crucial issues to the people of Kenya.
Right.
Let me now give you my opinion or my observation about our parliament generally. We have a parliament that when we elect someone to be within the opposition, for example, the last time this person will act as an opposition member is when he is sworn into office. The MP will make every effort to work with the ruling regime, and that is a disaster. When you look at Article 94, it says, our parliament shall at all times ensure that we shall protect and promote the constitution of our Kenya. In other words, there's a lot of power that lies within that house. If only they could understand what they're capable of doing, I think they would have done us a lot. Let me even give another example. When you look at the kind of issues that the opposition and Kenya Kwanza are about to engage in Bomas today, these are all issues that can be addressed within the parliament. Unfortunately, when you talk about IEBC, cost of living can be addressed in the House. If it is to repeal or even amend the Finance Act, it's a parliamentary issue. If you want to look at the question of inclusivity within the House still. So it tells us that when we want to discuss issues outside the House, we have lost faith in those people we are having in our parliament, unfortunately. So I wish and I look forward to a day when we'll have a vibrant parliament, a parliament that is people-centered, and a parliament whereby when we elect you within an opposition system, you will promote and protect the wishes of your people and the wishes of your party, because that is what the law anticipates. One of the ways of losing a seat as a member of parliament is when you are deemed to be promoting the interest of another party. That tells you already, when you're elected on, let's say, ODM, stick to your party, but at all times still have the interest of your people. You have an opposition role to play. It is about how the system of governance is framed. I had a look at a TIFA poll that was done a few months ago. Most of the people, even the members of the public, according to the polls, we are told that they are more comfortable if we elect you on ODM and you are going to work with the government, if they find you in bed with the ruling regime, those people who have elected you will be quite comfortable with you according to the TIFA polls. Again, that is quite an unfortunate circumstance. We need to have a balance. Those who are for the government and those who are opposing or critiquing whatever the government is doing. And that is what we are lacking. Let me now cascade down to what I would want to say. This House, every member has a right to what is called questions to cabinet secretaries under the standing orders. So a member is supposed or even allowed, if you have a question on, let's say, the trade ministry, you can draw a question addressed to the cabinet secretary, You do it either through the majority leader or the leader of minority, and the cabinet secretary will one day appear before the respective committee. You'll be able to posit the necessary questions to him. Yesterday, whatever the IG said, a member can equally do that under the security committee. So what I'm saying is, if they can understand the powers that they have or what they are capable of doing, they would have done us a lot of checks on the excesses of the executive. In 2020, the situation we are finding ourselves in Ghana, they had the Parliament of Ghana had an equal member of the opposition and an equal member of the ruling party. Members were the numbers were the same.
Right.
Even the speaker was from the opposition side. But now the people of Ghana are crying because those who are in the opposition are working with the Ghanaian ruling regime. So whenever that happens, it's an issue that's actually happening regionally, whereby it will be an impediment to the question of oversight, the question of checks that are supposed to be cast on the executive. Yes,
right.
There's a lot of checks that are supposed to be met on the executive. That does not happen.
All right.
Finally, let me add by saying this, that whenever the House is discussing motions, especially on Wednesday mornings, if a motion is about land or mental health, you will find a few members in that House.
Yeah.
And these are very important issues. They will only attend that House if it's a national issue or party-centered issue that has the attention of the media, for example. But there are crucial issues of land, governance. There are motions every day. You try and monitor the House. Sometimes actually the bell is rung to even whip the members to ask to come to walk into the floor of the House. So for me, I find it as a House that has not met our expectations. But we still have time. We hope they'll be able to pull their socks up. All right.
And Diana, I want to get your thoughts as well. So there's the issue, I remember on the 12th Parliament had been really accused of being dictated to by the executive. Do you perhaps think the 13th Parliament risks running into the same, accusation or allegations?
Unfortunately, yes, based on the most of the decisions that we have seen taken by the 13th House. We are a presidential system of government, and so our parliament ought to be the strongest institution. And it doesn't matter what political party you are from. The minute you are elected as a parliamentarian, you have a very, very high responsibility to represent Kenyan interests, to make all laws, to take care of the national past, and so on. But if you look at what happened right from the time Parliament was sworn, the first business was to vet and approve, vet the nominees for cabinet, principal secretaries, and so on. Was Parliament furthering the constitution or party interest? Largely, and I don't like to use the word party because like the president is on a new party. The last time he was deputy president, 1, he was on a different party, 2, he was on a different party. So I would say this is Parliament listening to the executive. The opposition tried to do their pushback, but again, even within the opposition, a trajectory that first we must go caucus within the parliamentary group meeting, then come take a decision. So the independence and the strength of Parliament has lacked in several instances, and I think as members, particularly of the National Integrity Alliance, these are things we have raised in a number of appointments. But having said that, I want to indicate that I think this Parliament has, and it's a foundation based on the discussions that were had in the 12th Parliament, has created certain structures that would help to strengthen it. If we were finally to put away the politics of loyalty to whoever would have been the executive leader, whether it's the president in the case of Kenya Kwanza and the prime minister in the case of Azimio, there are certain structures that have been created. For instance, this Parliament now has a total of 6 audit committees. So away from the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee, Public Investment Committee, there are 4 other committees that are around audit. And you see, this helps in oversighting public resources in a big way. One of the concerns that the Auditor General has consistently raised is the audit is not, the audit reports of the Auditor General are always incomplete because they are rarely considered by Parliament. For instance, in March this year, when she appeared before these 6 parliamentary committees, she noted that some reports as old as 2013 that ought to be, you know, like how you present to management.
Right.
The management of our resources when it comes to audit is Parliament. So we are that behind when it comes to audit. But these new committees, I believe, is a step in the right direction to help us strengthen our oversight role.
All right.
As Okwa Uchumi, we also we see this Parliament has decided to take from the Finance and Planning Committee the debt issues. And now there's a Debt and Privatization Committee, a committee that I think I have seen Honorable Makali there in the public hearing and the report that was released. He's the vice chair of that committee. And what we saw was a legislative proposal by the executive that would have taken away the powers of Parliament to oversight and manage our debt and turn it to near advisory. And the committee there pushed back and asserted the power of Parliament. We've also seen discussions around the issues of energy, the prices, and so on. So within the committees, I don't know, if you meet an MP in a committee, they are brilliant people, they understand issues. I don't know what happens when it comes to the floor and there is all this euphoria. It may mean that we turn around our business and weight committee more highly than the whole house, but that would also take away representative democracy. But I think on that particular front, we have seen some progress.